Blessed be sluts, and welcome to Love, Lust, and Magic, a show about sex, witchcraft, and the goddess that gets down and dirty with the esoteric and erotic. I'm your host, Gabriela Herstik, and let's get to it. I'm so excited to bring you this first episode of this podcast that I have been really working on since Gemini season, which is one of my favorite seasons to start new creative endeavors. And I did a lot of my interviews then. So I'm so excited to finally be getting these out to you and to be sharing this podcast. If you know anything about me, you probably know that I am a very, very air sign heavy person, which means that I can talk for hours and hours and hours and write for hours and hours and hours. I've written numerous books. I have a tarot deck that just came out and a journal, and I have another book coming in March. But I wanted to share my work in a way that was even more accessible than a book, because even if you can go to the library, there is still a little bit of a barrier of entry to get books. But with podcasts, you know, they're so easy to listen to and access for free. And that felt really, really important to me. So this podcast is going to be about my favorite things, which are witchcraft, magic, the Western ceremonial tradition of magic, Kabbalah, and of course, all things sacred slut. We're going to be talking about sex magic. I interview sex workers and people who are devoted to the goddess of love and who live in their sexuality. And I talk to people who are in the fields of mental health and the fields of wellness and are doing really beautiful work to help us live lives of meaning and purpose and grounding. My intention with this podcast is not only to share some of my own wisdom that I have learned from and embodied over the past 17 years walking the wild and feral and sensual path of the witch, but to also bring you other people who are experts in their field to help you just find a new appreciation for the magic you have in your life. Witchcraft and magic, in my opinion, are like the top ways to not live a boring life. To be a witch means to be enchanted, inspired, and romanced by the universe and the cosmos and the void. It is a way of working with, honoring, and embodying and embracing all aspects of the self, the wild, the tame, the pleasure-filled, the painful, the shadow, the light, the darkness, the depth. Witchcraft teaches us that duality is a fragment of our imagination, that everything exists at once. If we want to be witches, we must embrace all parts of ourselves with love, with lust, and with magic, and not with shame. And really my goal with my work, whether it's my writing or this podcast or the essays I write or the rituals I lead, is to help destigmatize sex, witchcraft, and the goddess. The body, magic, our feelings, our pleasure, and the ways that this interweaves with our hearts and our souls. So I'm really, really excited to be here. And for this first episode, I wanted to share a piece that I wrote for Modern Witch, which is a really great resource that I highly recommend. I will link them below, called A Manifesto of Erotic Witchcraft, which kind of surmises my own practice with witchcraft, which is centered in the body, in the sexual, in the feeling, in the heart, and in the ways that the sexual moves through our being to influence and inspire our magic. My work is also very much rooted in honoring the feminine, the divine feminine, and the goddess. So you will hear a lot about that on this podcast as well. I wanted to keep this first episode short and sweet because I'm also releasing an interview with the incredible Storm Fairy Wolf as the first real interview episode of this podcast. He is so inspiring, and his work on queer sex magic and honoring the ancestors, or what he calls the rainbow dead, is just so incredible and so inspiring. We talked in Pride Month, which felt really aligned. So even though it's November, we're bringing some of that Pride magic to you with that episode. And I just am so grateful for you guys being here. I hope that you like the podcast. Like I said, there's going to be quite a few solo episodes mixed in with the interviews I do, and I'm really excited to bring so many incredible humans whose work I just really admire, who inspire my own practice to the show. So I hope you like this manifesto, and I'll see you on the other side. Witchcraft has always and will always exist in the liminal, in the sacred between, in a dimension not accessible by the mind. Witchcraft is an experience enfleshed, envisioned, and felt. It is divine communion with the body, with spirits, with nature, with all aspects of the self. So is this true of erotic witchcraft. Erotic witchcraft isn't one set of rules or hierarchies or practices. It's not a specific tradition or exclusive to one kind of practitioner. Erotic witchcraft is a current of magic rooted in the powers of the flesh, in the powers of the body, in the union of all disparate aspects of self through the intentional cultivation and honoring of sexuality. Erotic witchcraft is a practice of devotion to the sensual and to the sexual, using the tools of ritual, magic, devotion, energy work, and the raising of sexual energy to reach altered states and eventually gnosis. Erotic witchcraft is an expression of witchcraft that centers magic and embodiment and connection to the divine and goddess through this. Erotic witchcraft comes home to the body as part of nature, as part of the living current of sexual energy that runs through the universe, known as the divine erotic. Erotic witchcraft asks us to meet ourselves at the deepest crevices of our soul. We live in a time and age when we get to use sexual energy to banish old beliefs around gender expression and sexual norms. Erotic witchcraft is a path to this death and rebirth. What we find within ourselves as we deepen our connection to the divine erotic can often frighten or surprise us. We may realize we're not straight, or that we're trans, or that we're asexual. We may realize we're kinky or non-monogamous. Erotic witchcraft gives space for all of these expressions, often many at once, to coexist. Not only so we can accept and love this part of the self, but so it can become a celebrated part of our magic and an extension our life. Erotic witchcraft centers the goddess, the rejected feminine, the feral and wild aspects of self that howl at the moon, and embraces carnal lust as a path to deeply knowing one's desires and one's soul. Erotic witchcraft is for anyone who wants to center their sexuality as a part of their spiritual practice and magical path. Erotic witchcraft is for anyone who wants to usher in a new, feminist, sex-positive aeon. Erotic witchcraft is for anyone who wants to rewrite the narrative that sex is only sacred in a certain way, with a certain kind of partner, in a certain environment, and that it's not to be celebrated if it falls outside of these boundaries. Erotic witchcraft is for the sluts, for the sex workers, for the queers, for the hungry, for the outcasts, for the feral, for those who have always dwelled in the liminal space outside of respectability. Erotic witchcraft is for the witches who know the power of pleasure to transform the self and shatter the boundaries of perceived reality. Erotic witchcraft is for those who know that sex and spirit have always been and will always be two sides of the same coin. Erotic witchcraft aims to find the divine union of heaven, earth, and underworld, of the angelic self, the body, and the shadow, using the mythos of Inanna, the Sumerian goddess of love and war, to do so. Erotic witchcraft is a live, evolving, a current, an egregore of the esoteric and erotic. Erotic witchcraft, if you hear the call within your bones and heart. Thank you so much for joining me in this inaugural episode of Love, Lust, and Magic. I hope you liked this rendition of a Manifesto of Erotic Witchcraft, and if this is getting you inspired to continue on your journey, lucky for you, I am teaching a course of classes called Perverting the Tarot, which is all about reading and working with the tarot erotically. The first part of the series on major arcana cards is now up on my website, which I will link below, and the second installment, working with the minor arcana, is happening this Sunday, November 19th, and the following Sunday, November 26th, we have rituals and practices, which is all about the different techniques you can work with the tarot to embed it into your magical and spiritual practice. We will be talking about talismans and sex magic and scrying and meditation and all sorts of fun stuff. If you want more tarot spreads and access to my essay series called Diary of a Sacred Slut, you can check out patreon.com/Gabby Herstik, where I also post monthly full moon and new moon ritual guides, as well as ritual guides for the Wheel of the Year. And I also have quite a few books out, my most recent being The Goddess of Love Tarot, a book and deck for embodying the erotic divine feminine, which I co-created with Julia Popescu, and is the most Venusian tarot deck ever, if I do say so myself. And all my other books, Inner Witch, Bewitching the Elements, Embody Your Magic, and Sacred Sex, are also out wherever you buy your books. So buy them from your local bookstore, bookshop.org, or your local witchy bookstore. And thank you guys so much for being here. As always, you can find me on social media at Gabby Herstik. There's a lot of scammers right now, so please know I'm never going to message you first and be like, hello there, sunshine, I feel your energy. Like, that is not me. That's a scammer. My Instagram has a blue check, and my only TikTok is the same one, Gabby Herstik, Herstik with 1K at the end, and that's it. I'll link to all my official Instagram or all my official social media accounts below, and I'm so glad that you guys joined me for this, and I'm so excited to share the rest of the season. Love, Lust, and Magic is produced by Toman.